My name is Neil Tickton, and I'm the founder of Westlake Revelations and the moderator for tonight's debate. The League of Women Voters and Westlake Revelations have once again joined together to bring you this event, and the Westlake Yacht Club has been very gracious to host our event. We really appreciate their generosity. For those of you that don't know, Westlake Revelations is a newsletter that covers issues relevant to Westlake Village and the surrounding areas. Revelations' mantra is just the facts without opinion, and I do this simply as my contribution to the community. As an aside, sometime this week, maybe next, Revelations will do its 500th article in the last 7 years. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization open to both men and women of voting age. This means they do not support nor oppose any political party or any candidate. Joining the League gives you an opportunity to support informed and active participation in government while having a lot of fun and meeting some great new people. We're fortunate enough tonight to have both Jean Thompson and Barbara Haas from the League. And I believe Jean is back here in the back. Would you guys wave? Where's Jean? She's back there somewhere. There she is. There's Jean. And I encourage you to talk to them more tonight after the debate. And if you're watching a video of us tonight, you can see more about the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles at www.lwvlosangeles.org. And all of you, both here and on video, can see unbiased election information at the League's smartvoter.org website, which is a fabulous resource. A huge thank you tonight to the Westlake Yacht Club for hosting us. If you don't know about the Yacht Club, WYC is both a sailing club and a social club. You are not required to live on the lake or own a boat to become a member. They offer a number of activities, and I encourage you to talk to members of the Yacht Club tonight or see more information about them at www.westlakeYC.org. Special thank you to Abby's Millhouse Bakery for providing tonight's refreshments. We have cookies in the back. And a special thank you to Emily Fisher, our student volunteer who has been helping me both on this debate and the school district one. She's done a great job throughout the entire last couple of weeks of organizing this. And we have other students here as well. They're all earning service hours towards graduation. There's one more group that I always want to thank, and that's my family, who is always hugely tolerant, so thank you. The goal of tonight is to have a structured, even-handed presentation of what the council members think on a variety of different topics and that the community considers to be the most important issues. There are 5 candidates running for 3 positions, 2 of which are incumbents, 3 of which are challengers. Now onto the rules. A quick review of the rules of which all the candidates have already agreed to. Each candidate has a 3-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. If they go shorter, we may be able to cover some extra questions. The candidates have chosen numbers out of a hat, a very special magical hat, I might add, to determine the random order. That also defines the order they're seating, and the order in which they're speaking, and the order in which they'll close. We have a series of questions submitted by the public that I will ask on behalf of the public and the community. We're working hard to make sure that the questions the community members told us they wanted to hear most are the ones that are being asked. In general, a council member is expected to carefully research and consider their decisions. To best reflect that, we gave all the candidates a list of most, but not all of the questions that we'll be asking tonight. So they have a chance to investigate the topics and think about them and figure out what they want to say. But there are a couple questions that they've not seen. Please note that sitting council members, of which we have 2, may not be able to answer some questions completely, and they'll be clear if that's the case. They have rules as to what they can talk and not talk about as a council member, especially if something's before them right now. Most questions get 1-minute answers. There's going to be some that have 30-second answers, and we're going to rotate the start position on each question. In front of everybody is a monitor. The candidates can all see it very clearly in the nice big one, and there's a smaller one for the audience to see. But basically, this is the timing, and it allows them to see how much time they have left and when their time is up. Because they know the questions in advance and they've had time to consider their answers, we're going to be strict on the time allotted, and that may mean that I need to cut them off so that we can cover as many questions as possible. Enough of the rules, except for one more thing that I always say at these events. These candidates are our neighbors, especially for this position, which is elected, is a volunteer position. In short, they each deserve our respect not only for running, but they especially deserve our respect tonight as we ask and they answer these questions. Our first candidate to speak is Mr. Brad Halpern.
First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, Westlake Revelations and Neil Tickton for hosting this tonight, and also thank all of you for caring enough to be here. 17 years ago, my wife Robin and I moved here to raise our family, our 3 kids. Why? We came here because of the open spaces, the schools, the environment, everything. And like so many of you, we came here for the safe environment again and the amazing lifestyle. Just last week, we moved our eldest daughter into college. My 2 sons are sitting here tonight, one at Agora High and one at Lindero. And I realized that my kids have benefited so much from our local schools. My mom, who's sitting here, who's a senior and lives in Westlake Village, who's also fabulous, she has benefited from the lifestyle. My wife and I, we're absolutely thrilled that we've been able to give our children the same sort of upbringing that both of us experienced in the San Fernando Valley. Through all of this, I have been quite outspoken. I've participated in the process, and I've praised things, I've expressed my concerns, and I've been very interested in what happens here in order to keep it the way it is. Our city council has done an enormous amount of things right, but I believe the decisions that the council makes in the next term are significant in determining Westlake Village's desirability and lifestyle for the next 20 years. With only a couple of parcels left to develop, we are near build out, and because of that, we need to focus on redevelopment and maintenance. But those, while we have restrictions in place to protect us, I fear that a lot of things that we've come to enjoy here are changing, and that's why I'm running. With changing times come changing needs. We have a growing number of seniors living in Westlake Village. We need a senior center. We need more services and to find ways of keeping seniors living here with assisted living. We need a new approach toward how the city engages with its residents, allowing for more of an open exchange, especially in regards to issues where residents deserve more time to share the information that concerns them and the HOAs. And we need a technology strategy that allows for a modern city connectivity. I'm a businessman, not a politician. 20 years ago, I had an idea. I created a product, a health food company, a pioneering product that changed the way the egg white industry is as you see it today, and have since invented and patented several other products. In the last 10 years, I was voted Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist. I received the Innovator Award from the Western Restaurant Association, and I was chronicled as one of the 50 people that changed the worldwide egg industry. Now, I know that sounds really goofy, but the reason I share this is because it illustrates the way I think. I can tell the pulse of what's happening, and I can also see what we need for the future, and that's exactly what I think our city council needs going forward. Thank you.
So we're going to do applause after each of the openings, but then we're going to be done with the applause for a little while.
That's fine. We can be done with the applause.
All right, Sue.
My name is Sue McSweeney. I've served on the City Council since 2001. I served as our city's mayor in 2006, 2007, and 2012. I believe my terms on the council have contributed to the betterment of our city. Advancements in our city's public safety, our schools, community parks, municipal infrastructure, and financial health have all been advanced. And a lot of our things that we tried to do have been realized. Our council has worked as a team, and that's one thing I really want to stress, is that nobody on a city council does anything by themselves. They do everything in collaboration and as a team. And I'm proud to have been a member of this team in Westlake Village for the last 12 years. My plan for the future is the same as it was 12 years ago. I want to keep the city pretty much the way it is right now. I think it's a beautiful city, and I think we enjoy tranquility that is the envy of a lot of larger cities, and there's not too many small cities that can compete with Westlake Village. And I think I've been all over the country and all over the world, and every time I come back to Westlake Village, I think how lucky I am to live here. I hope that you'll feel the same way that I do, in that we have a very exciting future ahead of us. We have some things that at this point need to be realized, and I would love to be a part of that. I've been on every committee that the city has now in my 12 years, and it's been fascinating, interesting, and the part that I love the most is the people of Westlake Village and being able to be part of this exciting city in the country. So thank you very much for being here tonight and for allowing me to serve in the past and hopefully allowing me to serve you in the future. No applause.
Once we started one round, we had to keep going. Don.
Thank you. My name is Don Rosenberg. I'd like to thank Neil, the league, the sponsors, the Yacht Club, and certainly the audience for coming out tonight. I moved here with my wife and first child 25 years ago. We pretty much moved from the East Coast with a short stay in Chicago, but I had always wanted to come out to California and spent about 30 minutes looking in the valley for a house and then came out here and here's where I've been. All of my children have gone through the Las Virgenes school system, and my daughter is now a junior at Agora High, so fairly intimate with how all of that works. I went to the University of Maryland, which is where I met my wife. We've been married 34 years, which I guess proves that I can work with others. And of course, I came out to California because I've been in the entertainment industry my entire life. I actually started a nonprofit record store at the University of Maryland. Little did I know that it would take me where it did, but it was certainly fun. I've worked for large companies. I've worked for small companies. I ran the Retail Trade Association, which is probably the best experience for being on a city council because you have a lot of diverse people with different interests and you've got to try to pull them all together so they don't kill each other. And we're going to get to the specifics with questions that Neil will be asking, but a couple of things that I wanted to mention while I have a few minutes here is, you're not going to hear anybody up here tonight tell you that, we want to turn Westlake Village into the San Fernando Valley. You're not going to hear any of us say how fiscally irresponsible we are. You're not going to hear us say we hate the schools, and certainly no one's going to say they want to get rid of deer. I think you'll find that, all of us, and I've known two of the members up here and got to know everybody else, really good people that are very interested in keeping Westlake Village as a great city and moving it forward. So, but the thing is, we may be a village, but we're not, even though we have an island, we're not really an island. We're surrounded by, the valley on one side with 1.7 million people and Thousand Oaks and Ventura, on the other side with 125,000, and then Oxnard with 200,000. So we're this little enclave in the middle, but we still, even if it's not our decision, we're impacted a lot by the things that happen in those cities. Certainly the traffic. When I moved here 25 years ago, you could get in your car at 3 in the afternoon and be at the 405 in 10 minutes. Now the traffic is so backed up, you can't go anywhere. And I see my red light is on, so I'll have to finish that up in certain questions. But anyway, thank you very much.
Kymberly.
Thank you and good evening. Good evening, members of the public. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. I know tonight is Monday Night Football, so it's nice to see some of the men out. In the audience this evening are my family, my parents, and a lot of friends that I've known for the 45 years that I've been a part of this community. I'm running for Westlake Village City Council first and foremost to advance the needs of the residents. I would also like to preserve the balance between quality of life and responsible development that is befitting of the city of Westlake Village. I'd like to promote an environment of collaboration and problem solving on the city council that will preserve the quality of our life. Now, it was through the vision of American Hawaiian, the original developers of Westlake Village, and the hard work of our past city leaders as well as our residents that have made Westlake Village be the place that it is. It is one of the most desirable places to live, not only in California, but in the United States overall. It is my goal to help us continue with that legacy. Like you, I'm passionate about Westlake Village. I grew up here. My parents moved here in 1968. My family was very instrumental in forming the Westlake Joint Board, Westlake Athletic Association, and the Westlake Chamber of Commerce. I attended Westlake Elementary School, and I had a very, very magical childhood here. But here we are 45 years later, and our community has changed. We need to start looking at prioritizing funding for our capital projects and providing housing for our seniors. We also need to figure out how we're going to maintain rather than change the character of our city. Residents should have some influence over how our community is to evolve. They place their trust in elected officials. We are the voices that they elect to be the decision makers that will help them and represent them on their behalf. They also want representatives that have a certain amount of government experience. And I think that that's what sets me unique from many of my other candidates who are running for city council. I come from both the public sector and the private sector. Currently, I work for the city of Oxnard, where I manage a city department. I oversee $15 million in property tax revenues that come into that department annually. I also oversee the agency's assets, the property, and the very, very complex development agreements, owner participation agreements, and all those agreements that you see that run with property similar to what we have here in Westlake Village. I am part of an executive team that also facilitates the city's economic development strategies. I think that my 14 years experience in government, and I forgot to mention the fact that I also worked for the federal government, where I helped constituents in this area as well as with the Valley with constituents' needs. I think that that skill set will help me help you representing the city of Westlake Village. Thank you.
Okay, 3 minutes. Hi, I'm Mark Rutherford. I hope most of you know me. Gay and I have been married since '86. I haven't counted the years. We raised both of our kids through White Oak, Lindero, Agora. Brooke, our youngest, just finished this last year, and she's at Marymount, and Chad just finished UCI last year. I was elected to the Westlake Village City Council in 1997. I've been on the council for 16 years. My platform, if I'm elected this time, my goal over the next 4 years is simple. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing for the past 16 years. I don't intend to do it differently. I like the way that the city is, and I want to keep working that way. If you like the way Westlake Village is, you don't really want it to see changed, I'm going to do everything I can to keep doing what I've been doing for 16 years to keep it that way. Like Sue, I've been on all the committees, also been on lots of the regional committees, the regional boards, Southern California Association of Governments, the Las Virgenes Malibu Council of Governments, the LA Division of the League of California Cities. What does that get us? Sometimes just a voice, but sometimes it allows us to get ahead of the curve. It allows us to know things kind of as it's coming down the pipe, and allows us to really, really gear up and deal with things. In our little city, and we are a little city, we've been able to basically get our fair share of Measure R, over $16 million in the first acquisition, not in the second 10 years or the 20 years that is coming out. Also, we got $8.5 million from Metropolitan Transit. And I say we, because that really is what happens. It's the council working together. And as Don mentioned, everyone up here loves our city. They care about the city. And we all care about the budget. We care about the schools, the police, the fire. We're all good at this. And every one of us up here would be good at that. What I'm hoping all of you kind of take a look at is not so much at the issues, but take a look more of beyond what those issues are. Indeed, the issues that are before us right now, they're going to be dealt with in 6 months or a year. And then there's going to be a council person that you've elected that's going to be there for another 3 years. So I hope that you look to the individuals. Are they open? Are they available? Do they look at all the angles, not just a particular angle on a particular issue or a particular perspective? So make sure they're representing all the residents of this city. Are they people that can really work and be collaborative with others? Can they work with the other council people, get things done, and continue things moving in Westlake Village? I believe that's the Westlake Village way. I believe that's how the council in the past has always gotten things done, and I believe that's the best way of keeping Westlake Village the precious jewel that we always experience every day of our lives. So with that, I hope you do support me on November 5th. Thank you.
Okay, so on a couple of those we ran a little long. I'm going to get a little tougher now on the timing. First question is for Sue, and it's about crime. It's a 60-second question. Many residents have an impression that there is more crime in the area in the last couple of years. Thoughts on what to do about that?
Well, I think that whenever there's a downturn in the economy, there's always an uptick in crime. That's just the way it goes. I have a very intimate knowledge of law enforcement. I'm married to a chief with the LA County Sheriff's Department who is a past captain at the Lost Hill Station. I have a brother that's a captain at Major Crimes, and I also have a brother who is a lieutenant at the Lost Hill Station. So I think we have a lot of families' discussion on how to fight crime in Westlake Village, and anything that happens is discussed at our Sunday family dinners. I think that the Sheriff's Department, and I know I'm not the most objective person, but I think they do a great job. I really do think that they do. One thing that I was really appalled about was a break-in at a house in one of the Westlake Village neighborhoods, and they stole a lot of things, including the dog. And to me, that was just the lowest form of crime. And
Thank you.
yeah, I'm glad I got all my brothers in there, though. They would have been upset if I left.
Okay. So contrary to the popular opinion about this, these question orders are set like long in advance in here as we end up with Sue first on crime. But Don, you are up next.
Okay. Well, I will second Sue on the sheriff's office. They do a great job, and I think your question about the impression is probably very accurate. There may be more of an impression that crime has gone up, but it really hasn't. I mean, when you're talking about small numbers, you could have 2 more crimes and it could be up 50%, depending on whatever category that was. But, of course, one crime is one crime too many. Some of it is seasonal. There's been a big, not big, again, putting in relative terms, a spike in auto burglaries. But I notice myself, sometimes I drive around and cars are unlocked, windows are down, the garage doors are open. And particularly in Westlake, we have a lot of houses where there's a lot of hidden views because of trees and walls and everything. So I really don't think that crime is up. I do think we work well with the Sheriff's Department, and we need to, continue doing that. But I do think maybe we need to remind all our neighbors to, lock their doors and keep their possession.
Thank you. Okay, flashing means stop. That's right. Kymberly.
I recently attended a Westlake Village Joint Board meeting where Deputy DeSantis gave a briefing in terms of some crime statistics that are occurring in our little city. And yes, he did mention that crime is going up. However, the type of crime that's going up is not the kind of crime that we want to be exposed to. It is violent crime. They are the home invasion burglaries. Deputy DeSantis explained to us that there is a big heroin problem in the Conejo Valley overall, and as a result of that, people who are on these types of drugs are doing home invasion robberies, and it's a very serious issue. In my walking through the neighborhoods recently, I have noticed that people are leaving garage doors up, gates open, and the like, and I think that we need to be mindful of the fact that can be an issue. My mother has volunteered for the City of Thousand Oaks, their police department, and volunteering in policing for over 14 years. I'm also being supported by the police department because they do know that I have an interest in promoting public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark.
Okay, generally, crime is up when the economy's down. I think everyone's mentioned that. But we're not really seeing an appreciable markup here in Westlake Village. But if you've got that feeling, we need residents to be reporting the crimes or even suspicious activity. It is okay to call the police. They're not going to get mad at you for that. The sheriff's contract really takes up about 1/3 of our budget. We have at least one sheriff's car in the city at all times. During the day, we have two. Unless there's an emergency in a neighboring city and they're called off to do that, just like when there's an emergency in Westlake, we're going to get more than a half a dozen to a dozen cars dealing with things here. Our contract also, we have ancillary services with the sheriff. We have the SWAT teams, we get the helicopter, we get the crime labs, we get all that extra supporting stuff. The scope of our contract with the Sheriff Department has changed periodically over the past 16 years, but the issue really hasn't come before us recently. But obviously, if something does come up, if we see the percentages, we always can evaluate our contract to try and increase scope or services.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Brad.
Thank you. I was that guy. I left the garage door open and had 2 expensive bikes stolen last year. We never ever thought of closing our garage door when we were home, but that is the nature of everything that's been said here. Most of it has been covered. The truth is, it's a down economy, like Mark just said, and it's mostly opportunistic type of crime. It's items stolen out of cars. It's things stolen out of an open garage. Luckily, I did a little investigation and found that there is not what's called Part 1 crime. That hasn't risen here. We are still a very safe area. If there are concerns, then we need to address that by increasing the neighborhood watches or patrols and seeing what we can do to address it. But everything else has been covered here. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go further, the window's open. Are you guys warm enough? Are you guys okay? You guys comfortable? You comfortable? Okay. All right. The first up is, the next question is Dawn. It's a 30-second question. It's about senior housing. And the question is, beyond the old hospital site, what do you see as realistic options to increase senior housing within the city limits or provide more options?
Okay, as Brad mentioned earlier, this city is pretty well built out. There's not a lot of room, there's not a lot of property, certainly not a sizable property for something like senior housing other than the 180. What we do have, though, is a strip along the 101 going eastbound from Lindero Canyon where we have a lot of offices like State Farm, Farmers, and some of those buildings are vacant, and there's an opportunity that somebody could buy that property and build there. So I do think there's opportunity for senior housing, whether it's in the one where 180 is or the other property. Boy, 30 seconds goes really fast.
Kymberly.
I think a lot of you understand my position in terms of senior housing, and I will not waver on this position. Our seniors have been the backbone of this community, and our seniors deserve to age in place. Our seniors deserve to have the most desirable housing available to them so that they can remain in this community. I will not waver on that position. I think that I've made that pretty clear in my communications with other people and when I canvass the neighborhoods. I totally support any senior housing that we're going to propose in the future.
Thank you. And Mark.
I believe the Conejo Valley does have a severe shortage of senior housing, both for independent and assisted living. Even in the Conejo, the locations are really limited. We have neighborhoods now in Thousand Oaks that have successfully opposed one just a few weeks ago and are challenging another one. The only way to really have it here in Westlake Village is to tear down Calvary Church. That current property is zoned for it. The other ways you would have to do would be to tear down maybe existing residential condominiums, but they're all condominiums. I don't see all the residents doing that, or, as Don said, trying to rezone commercial property.
Thank you. And Brad?
With nearing build-out, we only have a couple of opportunities currently. Obviously, the Richford parcel was once talked about, but that's not a good option. There's a parcel over here just east of Lindero on Agora Road. It's small, but it might be a possibility. Another option, of course, is the 180 parcel over by the old hospital site. Where this is going to come from in the future is really redevelopment. There is a possible the city's looking at a concept over in the Via Colinas area, which might have some opportunity. And there's other areas that might make themselves available as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sue?
Must be my turn. I think that in a city like Westlake Village, 5 Mile Square, there aren't a lot of options at this point because of where we are as far as build out, but I think that as a council person, you have to keep an open mind. Redevelopment, of course, is something that we could look to in the future, and I think that anybody that's going to be on the Westlake City Council needs to keep an open mind to what kind of housing can be available to seniors.
Thank you. Next question starts with Kim, and it's a 60-second question. It's along the same theme as the last one, but it's a little more specific. In regards to the old Westlake Hospital site, what are your thoughts? Feel free to refer to your thoughts about 180 submitting within the next year, your thoughts about public institutional zoning overall, and what the site could be used for.
Well, I am very happy that when the decision came to the city council and they denied the project without prejudice so that the developer does have an opportunity to resubmit something in the future. I'm happy that the council made that decision. But I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because we don't know if the developer will resubmit. That was a significant devotion of staff time that went into that project, in addition to it being a significant devotion of the developer's time and money. So we will have to see where the developer wants to take things. I certainly think that there is an opportunity, if the developer does decide to come back, for that developer to do a lot more community outreach. They need to hear from the residents what the exact concerns were. If they are able to do that and they do decide to come back, and if I am on a committee, I'd love to see every inch of that project so that we can pour over it and make the changes that are appropriate to our community and make sure that we meet our housing goals and provide our seniors with senior housing.
Thank you. We're going to hold applause on questions, but you can at the very end when we do the closing statements. And Mark.
First off, I really don't believe this is a 60-second question. So at the end of this, I really want to hear what other people have to say. This really deserves at least an hour discussion amongst all of us. First off, it's zoned. You can put a government building on it. City Hall, a library. You could go to a conditional use permit, but with those, the only things allowed would be public schools, private schools, fire stations, police stations, utility substations, water tanks, listen up, Three Springs, churches, civil theaters, and of course hospitals and nursing homes with the related heliports. The property is private, and in this country there are strong property rights here. At some point in time, something is going to get built on that property. We're not going to be able to stop it. I want, when that happens, to do everything we can to minimize the impacts of the neighboring homes, and as possible, have some of it as part of the public. God, I got a ton more to talk about. Bottom line is senior housing has the least impacts of any development. All the experts, all our experts, and all our experience tells us that. How it gets developed, to what extent, needs to be discussed.
Thank you. And Brett.
This is an unusual parcel. One, it's public institutional, as Mark just said. It has an odd shape. It's surrounded by residences, 2 churches, and commercial. And the shape makes it especially hard. The idea of assisted living at that location is a great one. Unfortunately, the 180 proposal was completely unsuitable because of the impact it had on the local homes. After the council denied that proposal, I arranged for a meeting with the residents from the 3 HOAs that surround that property, along with Pastor Dick Thompson, just to have a conversation to see what we'd like there. And obviously assisted living is an option. But this location is such a prime location. It's at the center of our city. It makes available a tremendous opportunity for the possibility of the city maybe to purchase that land, possibly make a town square with a senior center. We could be as creative as we want to with this. It is private, as Mark said, but there is a lot of possibility, certainly at that location.
And Sue?
It must be my turn, right? I'm the only one left. I agree with Mark. It's a very complicated situation that really can't be discussed in 1 minute. I'm happy that the issue is still open-ended and that somebody can come back and submit a proposal that possibly will be something that actually makes most of the people happy. I agree with Mark also that probably senior housing is the lowest impact on that property, but I don't think they got it completely right. And in Westlake Village, I think we pride ourselves on getting things as nearly completely right as we can. So I'm happy to that we we'll be able to look at that again, and I hope to be on the council and be part of that, and get that parcel at some point developed into something that adds to the betterment of the city.
Don?
I echo a lot of the things that were said, but since I only have a minute, I'll pick up from, as Mark said, it is public institutional, and because we have such limited land in the city, I would certainly like to keep it that way. However, as Mark also said, it's private property. If we were trying to turn it into a city center, I don't think that the price that the owner can get right now for a profitable business versus one that's not, I just don't think the city could afford that. I was at the meeting where the denial was issued by the council, and I listened to a lot of the people in the surrounding neighborhoods discuss, why they didn't want it there. And I heard a lot of different reasons, but I'll tell you the one thing that I think if I could put them all together that I heard the most was that they don't want noise and they don't want traffic. And a lot of these other things, whether it's a senior center or community center, is going to bring even more traffic. So I'm open to a new proposal from the developer or another one. But as she said, we got to get it right.
Thank you. The next question starts with Mark. It is a 60-second question, and it's in regards to community involvement. What is your recent community involvement? How are you involved in both the local area as well as the city with Westlake Village, within the city?
Okay. Although I used to be on several boards and nonprofit boards, I'm currently not on any. All my community involvement generates entirely from my position in the city council. So can I save my seconds for my other minutes? That's it.
No. You can go back and refer to something if you want.
I can go back to another one?
You can refer to something before that if you want. You got
all right.
You got 35 seconds.
I got 35 seconds. Let's go back to the 180 project. Basically, it wasn't ripe when it came before us. The other thing that we really need to look at is to try to get some of that land for public use. I really do believe that if we can get some of that land, the city's going to do something with it in the future with additional revenues that will be coming in. A senior center would be perfect for that. But the real purpose or the goal, I think, is to get low impact and some of the land into the public hands. That kind of combination that doesn't impact the neighborhood, I think, is really the solution for 180.
Thank you. And Brad is up next on that one.
Like all the candidates, we're all involved. I'm most proud of the involvement I have locally within the boundaries of Westlake Village. I'm currently serving my third term as president of the First Neighborhood HOA, and I served 2 prior terms before that. I'm on the Agora Site Council for Agora High. I'm also deeply involved with the schools and on the Community Grant Committee. So I've coached more teams than I can remember, and I've participated in everything that is Westlake, which is the July 4th parade on to city celebration. So I'm very deeply rooted in this community.
And Sue.
Well, I feel like Mark, that it's a pretty much full-time involvement to be on the city council. I don't think people realize how many hours that we actually put in with our committee meetings and things like that we do. But I want to take a minute to talk about Mark because he does so much extra for the city. He is on SCAG, he's on the COG, which is the Council of Governments. He mentioned this briefly, but I'm not sure that the residents understand that he was really instrumental with some members of our staff in getting $23 million from MTA and Caltrans and Measure R that's going to pay for our intersection improvements, going to pay for our bridge improvement. A city like Westlake Village, a little tiny city of 8,500 people, doesn't get grants of that size without a lot of work, without people going downtown, spending the day down there lobbying the people that are on those boards. And, oops.
And Don.
I've been involved in the community in very early years. Like Brad said, I coached a lot of sports. Pretty much started in 1994 with AYSO, AYBA, and Westlake baseball, and didn't do every one every year, but pretty much did a lot of them up until about 2008. I've also worked with the schools. I've been a chaperone at Lindero Canyon for Astro Camp and the Catalina trip, and then went on the Washington, D.C. trip when my daughter was there. But the last couple of years, I think I've been doing a lot of community service, but it hasn't necessarily been directed or directly in Westlake Village. I know some of you are aware that my son, my oldest son, was killed by an unlicensed driver 3 years ago. And I've been very active in public safety issues of unlicensed drivers and drunk drivers. Testified in Sacramento a few times, the federal government, and that's pretty much been filling up my last 3 years.
Thank you. And Kymberly.
So many years ago, my mother joined Westlake Women's Club, and ever since then, I've been part of that organization. I think I was probably one of the youngest members because she had me going to events ever since I was a little girl. Westlake Women's Club, I officially joined in about 2006, and many of you probably are familiar with the organization where we do a lot of philanthropic activities. We do a lot of outreach in the community, and we provide a lot of support to those who are in need. In addition to that, I serve as president of my homeowner association and have done so since 2008. I'm part of the Westlake Village Community Grants Committee, and I also do a lot of outreach in other communities, not just the city of Westlake Village. Now, it's important what Sue had mentioned about Mr. Rutherford, because participating in other aspects of local government is important as a city council member. If I am elected to the city council, I would fully expect to reach out to those other organizations and entities and be a part of the process where you're reaching out to the Conejo Valley at large. Thank you.
So I'm figuring that if I'm comfortable, that these ladies up here are cold. So we're going to close this door. Okay, just like that, just like that. Poor Kymberly sitting here doing this. So it's like, I figure if I'm comfortable, they're cold. So I'm just being nice. Okay. So, the next one is going to start with Brad. It is a 60-second question. This question is, this is a question that the candidates did not have in advance. What do you believe the role of a council person is, both in general and in the city of Westlake Village?
The role is to protect the residents, to maintain the quality of life, to work together for a common goal. You can see from what Mark and Sue, they've both been on the council for many years now, and they'll be the first to tell you it's a matter of teamwork. It's a matter of working together and collaborating. I also believe that we need some new ideas in moving forward, but the role is really to move our city forward while maintaining the quality and the jewel that it is. And we definitely live in a jewel here. Thank you.
And Sue?
What's the
Same
question?
This is a question to the candidates who do not have in advance. What do you believe the role of a city council person is, both in general and in the city of Westlake Village?
Well, generally, and in the city of Westlake Village, I think it's the same thing. I think it's to listen hard and often, and to collaborate. I don't think anybody on a city council gets anything done by themselves. It takes an idea, it takes other people to actually think that's a good idea, and then goes forward from that. I think it's very important in a city like Westlake Village that has such a small staff to be able to work very collaboratively with the people that are on the staff. All of our staff are cross-trained, can do all kinds of different jobs in the city, and I think it's important that as a city council person you understand that, and that you can work with all those different people, and that when you're asking questions and so forth, that you've done your homework. That's an important part of being a council person, And I think as far as when you're outside of the city, I think it's really important to represent the city of Westlake Village well. I know whenever I'm out in public places, and I often am in terms of my husband's job, I'll be in Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Nope.
Yeah. Sue, Don, you're next.
Well, I can say ditto and ditto, so I'll add a little bit extra. I mean, to me, one of the most important things is community outreach. I've been going to a lot of city council meetings over the last, couple of years. And the one thing, unless there's a major issue, there's hardly anybody there. And then, of course, when there is a major issue, everybody shows up and wants to get their say in. And in a town this small, we should be able to have, more involvement. One of the things I was going to bring up in my closing, but since Neil surprised us here with this question, I'll bring it up now. One of the things that I would like to see the city council do is make the, and I'm calling it a level the playing field, which is allowing residents to get more information when there is a proposal from, whether it's a 180 or whoever it is. What I constantly hear is people getting up and say, they get their 2 or 3 minutes. They're like us watching this little clock and the lights change and they, and a lot of people aren't public speakers, so they have a hard time doing it. And I guess I'll have to finish that thought when I get to my closing. So remember that and then I'll finish.
Kymberly.
The number one thing that a city council person is elected to do is to set policy for the city. That is the goal of a city council person. In addition to that, a city council person has a fiscal responsibility or has a fiduciary responsibility to oversee the city's general fund and its assets. And along with that is to be a good role model and to be a public figure that is befitting of the community. So when we talk about that, I think it's important for people to really understand that there is a difference between setting policy and being the kind of person who wants to maybe get into micromanaging at a staff level. That's not what we do. We set policy, we have a city manager that oversees staff, and we see that the policy is set and they make sure that it's fulfilled and executed.
Thank you. And Mark.
I could do a seminar on this. You're all right. What we do, we set policy, we oversee the city, we look at things on a fiduciary basis with respect to our budget. How do we do that? We listen. We are responsive. You can call me I'm in the phone book. I go to the grocery store, you see me in the aisle and you have an issue, I'm listening and I'm hearing. And we're absorbing all this stuff. And then we take that and we not only listen to the people that we like and know and we think alike, we listen to the other people. Listen to the people that don't like what I just said about maybe 180. And you listen to what all those issues are. And you try to come together in a teamwork way and push and shove and come to a camel. It's a compromise, it's a collaboration of whatever those issues are. And I do have more to say on this at the end.
Okay. We are going to be on to the next question. Sue, can you pull your mic a little closer to you so that Emily has a little easier time? Pull it as close as Brad's is to his. There you go. Okay. The next question is a 60-second question. The first person up is Sue. It's about technology. The question is, what are your thoughts on the issues within the city about technology? What would you like to see the city do about that?
Well, I've seen a tremendous amount of change and forward thinking in technology around the country, around the world in the years that I've been on the city council. And I think it's really exciting that in this day and age, if we went about our business in the right way, we could have real-time conversations with our constituents, and I think that's really exciting. I'd like to see that happen, but I think before that we could even get to that point, we need to find out what are the needs of the people of Westlake Village, what are the needs of the businesses of Westlake Village. I agree with what Don said. There's now kind of a reverse commute problem in the afternoons. And a lot of the people that I know now can work at home a couple days a week, but they need better technology. They need better infrastructure for that technology so that they can be in their beautiful homes in beautiful Westlake Village for more of the time. So I'd like to see a technology plan that might bring better service to our residents and better services to our business, because in the long run, that's just going to benefit all of the people of Westlake Village.
Thank you. And Don.
Well, first on the low end of technology, just talking about cell phones, I know there's still a lot of areas in the city that people don't have cell phone service. For 20 years, we didn't have any in the Three Springs neighborhood, and then that was number one on the list. We want cell phone service. And of course, as soon as people talked about putting it in, there were petitions, we don't want cell phone towers. So, So, anything you do always comes, with that issue. Fortunately, it got settled and everybody's happy. But, we have terrible internet speed in Westlake. Unfortunately, we're a small city. We don't have a lot of clout. Low bandwidth, which, to some extent is a national problem, not just here. The city really needs citywide Wi-Fi or WiMAX, and I know that there is a committee that's been working on this issue, and they're going to prepare a technology strategy, and I'll be very interested to see what that is, and then go out to the community and get input on it.
Thank you. And Kymberly.
In my communications with some of the residents, they have mentioned to me that there does need to be a more robust plan for our technology for our city. Some of the complaints that I've heard along the way is just the mere fact that many people are not able to get proper cell phone reception, and that's pretty critical, simply because many people no longer use a landline, and in the event of an emergency and they can't get cell phone reception, that can be problematic. Another area where people are asking for us to advance ourselves in terms of technology is with our infrastructure with cable. I don't know how many neighborhoods you have seen with an onslaught of satellite dishes being placed on roofs and all over the place. It just really does not look attractive in our community. Additionally, the business community has an expectation that we do move forward with technology so that it benefits them too. So if I'm elected, I'd hope to be on that technology committee because I think it's an important piece of Westlake.
Thank you. And Mark.
Another question where 60 seconds isn't enough, and I think it needs to be defined. Are we talking about technology and how the city does its own business, trying to cut costs? Are we talking about technology where the residents interact with the city with building permits or bus passes? Are we talking about citywide, which is I think what other people are referring to, like cell phones and capacity? I'll tell you, and it's been alluded to, this is not a new issue. We've had this same issue before the internet. Basically, back even before I was on the council. When we had one cable, and we had lousy cable and lousy rates, and we wanted different competition. And we went to Sacramento, and we tried to use our clout with our easements to try to get something better. But the reality is, we are a city of just 3,000 housing units. We're at the end of the county. It is commercially very, very difficult to get what we need out here. We need to have capacity, and we need to have good service to the end users. The solution to that, we've got a technology committee that's looking at it. I sure as heck don't have the answer for you tonight.
Thank you. And Brad.
It is a complicated issue, there's no question about it. The first thing I hear from residents as I've been walking door to door is, can't we just have citywide Wi-Fi? Well, we live in a topographical nightmare. This body of water to my left here is a real problem for Wi-Fi, as are the mountains around us. We have two companies, AT&T and Time Warner, that service us, and they service us quite substandard. All you have to do is go a few blocks away to the neighboring city, and you can get fiber optics pretty easy. The technology is not just about the city putting up a new website. It's about connectivity. And we have to decide what would make our life easier. Is it just a cell phone call, as was mentioned? Is it telecommuting? Will it things that attract more jobs and business? It's about our lifestyle. And yes, the city has done a couple of things, but we need to look further into that. And I'm confident I could really provide a lot if I was on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is going to be about Ridgeford parcel. You guys get a break for a moment here as we go through the Ridgeford parcel part. So because this issue is so complex, what I've decided to do Okay, is that better? Okay. So what we're going to do on this question, since it is such a complex issue, is I'm going to read a bunch of facts and background on it. If some of you had seen the recent Westlake Revelations article on the Ridgeford parcel, this is a subset of that, kind of scaled back. The reason I'm doing this is because it is such a difficult issue to go over that whoever would be answering the question, maybe the first 2 or 3 people answering the question, would be at a disadvantage. That they would be doing nothing but the facts about the parcel before they got to answering the question. And we would like to hear their answers rather than the background. So here's the background on this property. One of the issues that will likely come before the City Council in the future is the possible uses of the 4-acre property that is surrounded by Oak Forest Estates, Lindero Canyon, and Ridgeford. For those that don't know, this is the area east of the Lindero Bridge, north of Triumphal Canyon Road. It's an area that frequently has issues with vandalism and mischiefness. A few years ago, there was even an injured kid riding BMX that had to be airlifted out from the area. Years ago, this property was a parking lot for motorhomes and other long-term parking. That hasn't been the case since Three Springs was developed and the bridge was widened. And in past years, the area has been looked at by a variety of different groups and looked at by developers to build anything from apartments to assisted living. In fact, the state of California at one point mandated that the city look to zone for more income housing, and this was one of the locations that the city looked at. Many residents, in particular those in the immediate area, have asked the city to find a way to preserve the space and not have it to be developed. The city found a way to purchase the property, in part with grants, but those grants required that the city make the existing trail accessible through the property as well. What's interesting about this property is that it doesn't border either Ridgeford nor most of the area next to the creek next to Oak Forest Estates. In fact, most of those areas are actually owned by Oak Forest Estates HOA. The only place it borders is actually on the Lindero side and the open space on the other. There is an easement, however, that goes from Ridgeford through the property for trails, and that's today. Some people have suggested a passive trailhead, and others have suggested no public access at all, and just leaving it as open space. And still others would like a park or a dog park of some sort, as well as other ideas. Nearby residents are concerned about traffic, parking, and noise. So that's the background, so that you guys don't have to cover all of it. It's a 60-second question, and the first person up is Dawn. The questions are, what are your thoughts on this property? What do you see as possible good uses for the property? And how would you like to see it proceed?
First, okay, my thoughts on the property. And this is all notwithstanding any legal implications, because I started looking into it and I found some things out, and then Neil just came up with a lot more. And so who else knows what other strange connections there may be, both with the grants, the ownership of the property. So I'm going to leave that out right now because I don't think we really know all that. Possible good uses, number 1 on my list is leave it alone. Do I get those seconds back?
The seconds back. And let's no more applause on this question.
I mean, you know, there's trails all over Westlake Village. There's trails behind my house. There's trails everywhere you look. So this would be a very short trail. I don't think it's really necessary. There is no good place to park. And once you build a trail, it's impossible to keep people on the trail. The upper easement is too close to Ridgeford. The lower easement is too close to the creek and Oak Forest. And if Oak Forest allows the easement to move down, they now have no control over people when they start walking, and they're never going to stay on the trail. It's beautiful down there. They're going to walk all over the place. So how do I think we should proceed? I think we need a legal opinion by the city attorney as to what we can do there and what we can't.
Thanks. So we're going to give everybody a couple extra seconds on this one. I gave you 10 seconds extra on yours. It turned into about 15, so everybody gets an extra 5, which just means that Emily is going to start at 5 seconds late. It starts flashing, it's still yours. Kymberly.
I agree. This is not a 30 or 60-second question that can be raised in this sort of format. In fact, the City Council is having a study session on Wednesday about this particular issue. It will be at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I highly encourage those of you who can get there to do so. I've been in communication with several neighborhoods. Oak Forest, I snuck in and had a chance to get over in there so I could see what was actually happening. Please don't let it out of this room that I snuck in at Oak Forest. It is a gated community. I also had a conversation with the Cove and some other residents up Richford. I live in Summer Shore. I cannot represent Summer Shore's opinion overall, but we do understand that there are some problems there. Now, as far as I know, it is proposed at this time, and I would love to get to that meeting tomorrow or Wednesday to find out a little more, particularly when a city enters into monies where there's grant funds. I don't know how far down we are in this process, and if grant funds have been committed to this project, then folks, we might have to really reevaluate some things there.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to start at 5 seconds after you start talking.
Yeah, where to begin? Look, it was private property, and we've gone over this, and Oak Forest and the Point especially wanted something done to prevent development down there. In this country, if you got property, you got a right to do something with it, despite zoning laws. The best way to protect property is to put it in the public hands. Okay, that's what the city did. We went out and got the first grant. There's two grants. First grant to actually acquire the property. That's been done. That got closed about 2 years ago. That took some time. Now it's in our hands. We can prevent the development, but it's public money that went to purchase the land. And I do believe in the end we're going to find out that has to be some kind of public purpose down there. Now, Sue and I really can't get into what the uses are. That's one of those limitations. I can tell you that there are going to be public outreach. There is going to be public meetings. We're going to be listening to everyone, and we're going to try and figure out what to do with that. There are problems down there, and maybe the city can help eliminate those, especially the graffiti up behind the Cove, as well as going off. We've got trespassers now. So by owning the property, we might be able to do something to help minimize the existence of issues that are already happening down there, despite the development.
And Brett.
As you've probably heard and guessed by now, this property has a lot of different moving parts. It is a really good thing that the city bought this property to control it. You've got a couple of HOAs, you have the Ridgeford properties up there. Recently, Dawn and I walked through the entire property. We were led through it, and I followed that with meeting with Audrey at the city to see what the city was really looking at as a concept. Obviously, a trailhead was what was talked about, as well as an off-leash park. I cannot see a dog park there. It's at the bottom of a gully, and the sound will have a huge impact on the houses above. It will rise up there. I think the city needs to treat this with an enormous amount of respect towards the property owners on either side. And I'd really like to see this kept as a natural space if possible, and look into that, because it is beautiful. It is magnificent. In 17 years, I had never walked that property, and it's quite astounding.
And Sue?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I think it was actually a great strategic move that we were able to purchase that property and keep it from being developed in other ways that we didn't want to see developed. You know, the other thing is we were presented a few months back with a beautiful photo shoot of the nature that exists in that property, and I don't think anybody on our city council or anybody in the city of Westlake Village really wants to tamper with that to any degree. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no proposal in front of us at this point. We're not considering doing anything, and I strongly will have to be very much persuaded to do anything but leave that alone as much as possible. Like I said, I think it's a beautiful area, and I think it's one of the absolute jewels of Westlake Village.
Okay. Our next question is a 30-second question. Kymberly, you're up next. The question is about a dog park. It's a 30-second question. What are your thoughts about the city developing a dog park? Where might you see it go?
The issue with the city and parks is, first of all, I think the expectation of the residents is to really get this community park completed. That is the big theme. That is the thing that all the residents are asking about, are concerned about. And I think before we talk about getting involved with developing yet another parcel in our beautiful city, I think we need to sit down and figure out how we're going to fund and maintain those parcels that we already have that are earmarked for park and open space. So until then, I think that the city needs to not entertain anything until they can get these other parcels under control.
Thank you.
That's also what we're talking about at the study session on Wednesday, is staging the development of the park up on TO. A dog park really tops the items of a lot of requests by our residents. But unfortunately, like active sports parks, there's very little land in this community to put it. A dog park really needs to be close to 2 acres, an acre for the larger dogs, an acre for the smaller dogs, and it needs to be dedicated for that purpose. It can't be a joint use because of the health issues with the grass. We've attempted to negotiate with Oak Park to try to put one just north of YB School. That didn't go anywhere, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Got answered.
And Brad?
I'm a dog owner, and for years I'm one of many who've requested a dog park. But the noise and the traffic it brings make it prohibitive around neighborhoods and homes. It just simply does. I'm told there's no room up at the YMCA park for a dog park. It's 18 acres. I'd like to see if there's a possibility, but that would have to be done without any impact on Canyon Oaks homes. There may be other areas that come up, but it may just not be doable.
And Sue?
Well, I think that dogs have become a really important part of our community. I know when I see my neighbors walking their dogs and talking to each other, it's one of the places where really community, you really see it alive. I think there's a lot of different iterations for a dog park, and we have to be creative, and I think Westlake Village has been able to do that. And a dog park doesn't necessarily mean a fenced-in area, 2 acres. It can be all kinds of different things, and I think that we all need to be open to considering the needs of so many people in our community that really enjoy spending the time with their dogs.
Thank you. And Dawn?
I have 2 dogs. I love them. They sleep in bed with me every night. I told my wife the other day that there was a discussion about a dog park, and we're talking about Ridgeford, and she immediately said, "Oh, Natasha will love to go there." And I said, "Well, it's not going to happen." While it may be the highest one in the survey, I'm sure if the second question had been, "Oh, and we're going to put it in your backyard," it would have immediately dropped off, and that would have been the end of it. It can't be in a residential neighborhood. Maybe there's some, if the YMCA doesn't, and I'll ask this to Mark and Sue, because I don't know, if the YMCA doesn't come through with their property, is there room up there for a dog park?
Thank you.
I mean, it's down the road.
Thank you. Ooh, she's more vicious than me. She just cut you off. The next question starts off with Mark. It is a 60-second question. It is about the hiring of a city manager. Sooner or later, the longtime and celebrated city manager for Westlake Village will retire. What are your thoughts on how a city should go about hiring a new city manager?
Okay, first off, I really don't think this is going to be an issue in the next 4 years. I really think the city would be best served if Ray serves another 20 years, at least. I think the real question what you're asking is, do we hire internally, do we hire externally? We've got 3 employees. Audrey Brown's got her master's in public administration. Kerry Coleman just got his. Scott Wolf is actually working on his doctorate. But then again, we hired Ray from an outside source, and look how great that worked. I don't know. I think we keep our options open, and we look at everything and what's best for the city when that happens. And I really don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I sure hope it doesn't.
Brad?
Our city has been so fortunate to have an astoundingly great city manager like Ray. You can see this in every detail. He has a hand in every detail that goes on in this city. You can see this by his personality is open to communication from anyone, and he's also been tried to be lured by other cities. So obviously he's quite a value. He's remained in our city longer than most city managers do in cities. I would suggest we look at the skills that he does so well for a candidate that we're thinking of, and also look at skills that we might desire, and put that together and find somebody that has a personality and demeanor that fits this wonderful place.
And Sue?
Well, it's one of my worst nightmares, I have to say, losing Ray Taylor. But somebody like Ray Taylor has set in place all the elements of the city that it could be run, I hate to even speak these words, without him. And it would be an arduous task. And I think that's one of the reasons I would like to be on the council another 4 years. I think that you do need to have some history with the city if you are choosing a city manager. It's a very complex job, and Ray does it so well and makes it seem, I don't know if effortless is quite the word, but he makes it seem easy, and it's not. It's trying to make a lot of different moving parts all cohese. I think we'd probably go with an outside consultant, and it would take up a lot of time, probably weeks, actually, to search for a new city manager. And I know I'm up to that task, and I think probably all the candidates realize that that's the kind of thing that would be required of them.
Thank you.
But don't tell Ray.
Yeah, there's no video of this or anything. And Don.
Right.
I'm kidding, it was a joke.
Well, Mark, I'm glad you said he was going to probably stay another 4 years, or I was going to withdraw if you said he was leaving. I've been lucky enough to know Ray pretty much as soon as he got here. I don't know how we met and how we, got to know each other, but he's, as the city clearly attests to, and I'm not taking anything away from either these council members or past council members, but this city is pretty remarkable. But, when you look at somebody like Ray, and Sue mentioned it, he has put together a phenomenal staff that will one day, even if they're not the ones to be promoted into that position, will make it a lot easier to, to continue what he's established. I think, one of the things, a little more specific to your question, is have Ray on the search panel. Also have residents on the search panel, and really take your time. It's really important. I've hired a lot of people in my life in different things, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but it's really the compatibility with the staff that's extremely important. Don't cut me off.
Thank you. And Kymberly.
Coming from city government, I have had a wonderful opportunity to actually sit down and have very lengthy conversations with Mr. Taylor, and he's just a phenomenal city manager. He's been with the city of Westlake Village for 21 years, and I hope that he does stay another 21 years. Typically, the process in hiring a city manager, the city council will go into closed session and have that discussion, and then there's an RFP process where you do a request for proposal, where you bring in a team that is experienced in seeking professional people like city managers. Once you have them in place, then they prepare a briefing for the city council to determine what they're looking for in that city manager. And then once that process is in place, it usually takes about another 6 months before the hiring process. There's a whole interview panel and the like, and it usually is represented by some residents, other city managers, and other city staff. So it's a long process, and I hope we get to keep Ray for as long as possible.
Thank you. We're going to try to squeeze in one more question here. Brad starts on this one. It is a 30-second question. If you do it less, better. How much have you raised for your campaign, and what is the primary source of those funds? What is your expected total budget for your campaign?
I've had one fundraiser, raised $4,380 from friends and family. That was very generous of them. I have been offered to have more fundraisers, but I have no intention. I've seen previous elections where the campaign funds got pretty high, and I just do not think it's reflective of where we live. It's about interpersonal communication and listening to what people have to say, and that's the way I choose to do it.
Thank you. Sue?
Well, my answer is going to be very short. As is my tradition, I'm not raising any money. I didn't 12 years ago, and I'm not going to this time. I am going to, well, actually, I'm going to make my husband buy me some signs. And I have some left over from 12 years ago, so I'll probably spend a total of about $200 of his money.
And Don?
Well, when you're a newcomer, unfortunately, you can't do that. So far, I've raised about $5,000. 75% of it came from me. And I'm perfectly willing to accept donations at the end of this. I think at the beginning I said something that was probably not correct, that no one would talk about fiscal irresponsibility. Well, probably running for the council is fiscal irresponsibility. But, but I'll leave it just against myself.
And Kim?
To date, I've raised close to $2,500. I have not had a fundraiser. I actually had a kickoff party, which was going to include about 7 people, and it turned into 50. Of those 50 people started writing checks. That totaled about $1,300, and then I've kicked in about $1,100 of my own. If I have an opportunity to raise additional funds, then I'll do so. Otherwise, I'll work with the money that I have and continue to get my message out.
Thank you. And Mark?
Kind of reiterating what Brad said. Actually, over the past 6 years, candidates have spent 15, 20, actually 2 years ago, somebody spent over $25,000. I don't believe it's necessary in this city, nor do I think spending that kind of money is really the Westlake Village way. I've raised actually $700 from several residents. Everything else I've kind of thrown in, loaned on my own. I think I'm going to spend somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000. And I'm not doing a fundraiser. I'm not doing a kickoff party, so you can understand the difference in those fiscal budgets. I do have envelopes in the back of the room. Afterwards, please donate if you want to.
Okay. So, those are our questions for this evening, but there were a few more questions that they're prepared for that I'm going to read to you very quickly and encourage you to talk to them about after the event is over. The first one is a 30-second question of what their thoughts were on prohibiting plastic bags within the city. Another 30-second question on what they saw as the city's role in smoke shops and marijuana clinics for medical use within the city boundaries. And then finally, the last question, 30-second question, was what restrictions did they currently have, or do they believe they would have moving forward with likely topics that would come before the council? In other words, topics that they would have to recuse themselves on. With that, we are going to move into the closing statements. And this is a different draw of the ordering. So the first one up here is going to be Dawn. It is a 2-minute closing. And we are ready.
Thank you. Well, again, I'd like to thank Neil, the league, sponsors, audience, and all the candidates as well. As everybody said a lot, it's hard to answer these questions in 30 or 60 seconds. There's really a lot more depth to them, but at least now you have some ideas of where we stand, and you know, it's pretty similar. I'd also like to thank the past and current city council members, and really most importantly, the Westlake Village staff for making this a great city. Don't always agree with everything they do, but this is a great place to live. I do want to finish up that one point that I was talking about, if you guys remember early on. And essentially, I've always had a problem with where you have a group comes in to make a proposal, whether it's to build a seniors center or build some housing or whatever, and they're professionals. They work with staff. They work with the city council. They have attorneys and people that do this for a living, and then the residents get up one at a time and they don't have the same background. So I think what's important is to level the playing field, and the way you do that is not that the city would take any position at that point, but the city should have outreach and try to pull those people in as a group, go over the facts with them so they really understand, what's not, don't waste your time arguing this because legally we don't have the ability or the authority to deal with it. And then allow those people, and they'd have to, all be there, but allow them to put together a presentation instead of, a 3-minute presentation with lights flashing. If the proponent takes 40 minutes, they get 40 minutes, but it has to be done. And whether it's one person doing the speaking or two, they get to actually make a proposal and not just sit there for, however long it is, and everybody gets up and says the same thing the person before them said, many times things which are totally irrelevant to the argument. I think that kind of thing would certainly make it a lot easier for the city to feel like they're part of the decision-making process. Thank you.
And next up is, this is not going in a specific order, but it happens to be that Kymberly is next.
Okay, and that's perfect because I would like to piggyback on what Don had just mentioned. I think one of the things that the city of Westlake Village is unique in the fact that we don't have a planning commission. So when projects like 180 or community parks and the like come before our residents, they get one bite at the apple, and that's basically when that project comes before the city council. If there was a planning commission, and I know we're too far down the line with the way the city's evolved, we simply can't have that. But typically, planning commissions allow for residents to have an opportunity to speak before the project gets too far along in the process. Planning commissions also have people who have a certain level of expertise to review projects and make better recommendations on that level. So from that standpoint, I think that we need to have maybe town hall meetings where the public can get out and talk about the projects without any sort of limitations attached to them, and that they can ask the meaningful questions that they need to ask so that they can get their concerns vetted at that process before it goes to an approval process. If I'm elected to the city council, I will continue to listen to the residents and try to be that spokesperson and work collaboratively with the city council so that everybody's needs can be heard and addressed to the degree that they can be. I'd like to make sure that we are continuing to deliver quality education to our students, and that we're going to provide housing for our seniors, and that we continue to support public safety. I also want to make sure that we have equitable representation for all neighborhoods in Westlake Village. That is very, very important to me. And I hope that on November 5th, you select me as one of the candidates for City Council. I think I have the skill set to help us lead us into the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Brad.
Before you, you have 5 people who obviously care enough, and it's certainly not about the money of being on City Council. I think we all know that. There we go. Westlake is indeed the winner here, having people who care so much. And one common thread you've heard tonight is we live in a pretty amazing place. It has been fiscally responsible. We enjoy a lifestyle unlike most places. And we have a few attributes here that can't be compromised. One is our school and the 2 schools that it feeds into. There's a new reality out there that schools are not publicly funded like we all know of. It's parent funded, it's community funded. And I truly believe that our schools are tied to our property values, and we can do more, not just financially, but I think the city, when we moved here 17 years ago, the city really elevated the perception of the schools, these blue ribbon schools that we have here. And I think we can do better, whether it's a public relations effort or whatever we need to do. Just so you know, I bring a lot of new ideas and a vision to collaborate with other council members. I hope you will give me an opportunity, because my history shows that I've been devoted to keeping Westlake the way it is. In walking the neighborhoods, you can see that people really only care about what's happening in their backyard. And I think our council needs to be mindful of what happens in everybody's backyard as far as development and what goes on. And I hope on November 5th, you will give me that opportunity. Thank you.
And the next up is Mark.
I think I'm going to go back to my theme about talking about the types of people I think should be city council people, not just necessarily issues. Over the past 16 years, I've seen lots of councils, lots of boards, lots of associations, and many of them become very dysfunctional because of the interplay between the council people. And it wastes a lot of time and voter resources. And it doesn't just happen in Bell or Compton. Years ago, it was in Malibu. 10 years ago, it was in Thousand Oaks. Right now, it's happening to our water district at Las Virgenes Council, or Las Virgenes Water District. And so I want to encourage everyone here to look beyond just the issues. Look at the candidates. Are they team players? Are there people that can really work under the conditions that they've got people asking them to do something? They evaluate it, they take a look at it, and they make an informed judgment on what they believe is the best for this city. Not just necessarily walking lockstep on a particular policy or issue, because you got to look at all of them. Are they the types of people that really can continue to get things done? Are they collaborative with everyone? And they keep moving forward and keep things moving forward in City Hall. And when you're on the losing end, hey, that's the way it goes. You come into City Hall the next day and you work with everyone else and you respect them for their decisions and how they voted, and you move on to the next one. So I encourage you to ask your friends, ask your neighbors, ask city workers, ask anyone who's had any interaction with the city. What are the people that really work well there? What are the types of people that really get things done? I really do believe you're going to hear that I've been doing that for 16 years. So has Sue, so has many of the people that have been on this council. That's really how this council and this city has stayed really, really the jewel that we love. I encourage you all to please support me, at least, on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sue?
Well, I don't think I said this earlier, but I have actually lived in the city of Westlake Village for 25 years. I raised my children here, and my great love, of course, is the school. I raised, or helped to raise, many of the children in the community of Westlake Village, and it's been an honor to do that, and it's an honor at this point in my life to be able to give back to our community. We have a wonderful community. Of course, we can always do better, and I'd like to help us move forward in the next 4 years. I really, really cherish the relationships that I've made in the last 12 years and in the last 25 years. And what I think about Westlake Village is it's a very neighborly place. Everybody cares about their neighbors. I don't think there's anybody in this room that wouldn't do whatever they could for the other people in their community. And I think that's not something that's a totally common occurrence in this day and age. And I think that I bring respect for the people in my community, and that's something that you don't see every day, and you especially don't see it in national politics. You don't see it at the state level, but you do see it in a place like Westlake Village. And I'd like to continue to be respectful of our residents and make this even better than it already is. So I'm not raising any money, and I'm not asking for any endorsements, but I would like you to endorse me by your vote on November 5th. So thank you.
That concludes tonight's debate. Through You guys stole my line that says, how about a round of applause for the candidates? But we'll come there in a second. Through Westlake Revelations, the debate will be available on the web in the days to come. We'll announce that through the Westlake Revelations email list so that we can make sure that, so just make sure that you're simply subscribed to the list. Go to www.westlakerevelations.com to sign up. We want to thank our candidates tonight, so there's the round of applause for them. Okay. And the candidates will remain to answer any questions that you may have. We also want to thank the Westlake Yacht Club for hosting us and the League of Women Voters for their support, Abby's Millhouse Bakery for the cookies for tonight's refreshments, as well as everyone that made tonight's possible. Please don't forget to vote on November 5th. You are voting for 3 seats. In other words, vote for the top 3 candidates. There's literature on the back table. Thank you for coming.